It sounds super cute and a little bit like Diablo 2 with that kind of management of fitting your things in the right squares. And that makes me want to play it. And I also want to sing backpack, 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 backpack when I'm playing. Just
Oh,
saying.
now I'm gonna think of my little mouse character as Dora. Thanks.
There you go.
That's now headcanon. I love it.
This episode is sponsored by Druid City Games.
It's time for the Salt and Sass podcast when we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you are a gaming veteran or simply starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 20. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandi.
And folks, we're back with another episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us for episode 20. So excited to talk about board games, a board game book, and of course, a few video games. But Mandy, first of all,
Yes.
I know that you recently did a podcast with Candace from Board Game Geek, and I loved that. You two were great.
Oh,
But I think I saw on your social media feed that you actually did another show recently. What's that about?
I did. I was a guest on a podcast for the channel Board Game Faith. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's just about faith in board games. And well, yes, that is one thing that they look at, different faiths intersecting with board games. But my specific topic was education and board games. So we talked about gamification in the classroom and other topics. So if
Love it.
education and games sounds really exciting to you, you should check it out. I'll try to put a link here in the description so you can go see it if you want to see more.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes for sure. That's
Yeah.
awesome, Mandy. I have not listened and I look forward to taking a listen.
Yay.
That's great. Now, Mandy, I'm going to elbow my way in here because, folks, for you who are following on, we always like to open the show, even though we're a board game podcast. We
Yes.
have some digital gaming love here as well. And oftentimes, Mandy, you have a little more video game energy than I do,
Apparently.
but I'm going to elbow my way in because I have had two new to me games,
Ooh.
and I'm
Okay.
jiving on them. Okay.
Okay, gotta hear this because maybe I need them.
You do. Anyway, first up, Backpack Hero. Backpack Hero. Backpack Hero is a dungeon delving rogue-like game. Play a lot of those in which, you load up, you get a little map. There are different rooms, with icons for enemies and treasure and adventures and all that kind of stuff. And you go through, and when you enter a battle, you're on the left and your enemies are on the right, and you just attack each other and you try to win, get treasure, keep on going, and beat a big bad at the end, describing a lot of games. In this one, you're going to be playing a little mouse. This is an early access on Steam
Mm,
right now. So it's not finished, but it's very polished. And I've really been enjoying it. So in the early access, you play as a mouse. I think as it goes into full release, you'll be able to pick from other heroes as well. But what sets Backpack Hero apart is the backpack part. Because what happens is that you get a little backpack and it's really, it's got like an illustration, but then there's a grid on it, a 3 by 3 grid of
mhm.
squares. And every item that you get will fill into that grid. So maybe a sword is 3 squares high and 1 square wide, but a shield is 2 by 2. And then your
Oh,
potions are 1 by 1. Oh, but then you get another sword, but it's a 2 by 1, doesn't do as much damage, but it's smaller and leaves you more space. Oh, all this stuff. So it's super puzzly because what's going to happen is you're going to be twisting and turning things and trying to make your backpack as efficient and powerful as possible as you progress. There are different things you can do. You can do like swords and armor and stuff like that. You can do a magic build with wands and energy orbs that have to be next to
that.
it. There's this archery thing. There's lots of different ways you can customize your character and explore different strategies, which is really, really cool. And as you level up, you get to expand that backpack. And it's really, there's even strategic elements to that because do you add 4 squares to the top or do you add two to the side on the left and two to the side on the right? I don't know. It depends. There's all sorts of nuances on how weapons and armor get more powerful with adjacency rules or position in that grid kind of
Mhm.
rules. There are a lot of little details that make you feel clever as you're trying to twist and turn items and make your backpack full of the most powerful items that you can or come up with a really, really fun build. And I have been loving it. So Backpack Hero early access on Steam is a huge recommend for me.
it sounds super cute and a little bit like Diablo 2 with that kind of management of fitting your things in the right squares and so that makes me want to play it and I also want to sing backpack 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 when I'm playing. Just, just
Oh,
saying.
now I'm gonna think of my little mouse character as Dora. Thanks.
There
That's now headcanon. I love it. The other game I thought our friendly Salt and Sass friends would think of, friendly friends, y'all are friendly friends, is Panorama.
you go.
Pan apostrophe orama on Steam. So this is a game I discovered through Crits Happen. Scott Morris, who works in the
Right.
industry, has done content and things like that. So thanks, Scott, for turning me on to Panorama. For those of you who've listened or watched for a while, you know we are big fans of a game called Dwarf Romantic. In
Mhm.
fact, there is a board game based on Dwarf Romantic, the video game, that's now nominated for a Spiel. Hello. Wow.
Nice.
And as soon as you look at Panorama, you're going to be like, isn't this just Dwarf Romantic? And yes, but also no. So the things that the games have similar is Panorama is a digital tile laying game where you have hexagonal tiles that have different terrains like rocks and forests and water and things like that. And you are going to be playing these tiles and scoring points when you put tiles that have the same terrain next to other tiles that
Hmm,
have that terrain type. And that is all very Dwarf Romantic as well. But Dwarf Romantic had a thing where all the sides can be different on a tile, and the way you rotate and orient the tile matters. That's
right.
not in this game. A tile will have
Oh.
a type or multiple types, but it doesn't matter what sides you line up. It's just what tile it's next to, which simplifies it a little bit, which quite frankly, I enjoy. The other element that's different is every once in a while you'll hit a score threshold and then it will unlock a goal structure.
Mm,
And so when you put that out there, then once you fill the goal structure with the right matching tiles, that building will pop up, you'll score more points, and you'll get more tiles, propelling your game forward and allowing you to get more points to get more structures and so on and so forth. It is very pretty. It is more relaxing to me
hmm,
than Dwarf Romantic. I still love
really?
Dwarf Romantic,
Okay.
but I find it just slightly less stressful. And Scott Morris has called it more of a board gamey experience than Dwarf
Hmm,
Romantic, which I find,
interesting.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I find it's an interesting way to describe it. I've been loving it. It's beautiful, it's engaging, it's simple to get into, and I definitely, even if you have played, own, and like Dwarf Romantic,
Right.
I do think Panorama is different enough that it's worth a look.
All right. Well, that is one I saw pop up on your Steam list. Um, I was
Don't
like,
watch
oh,
that list, Mandy. Oh no.
Suzanne has purchased Panorama. I'm like, hmm. So I've now since
No.
added it to my wish list, but y'all know I'm cheap there, so it's gonna stay there until it goes on sale.
Now, Mandy, I'm just glad that we get this time together to record because I realized I'm going to lose you soon, aren't I?
Oh yes, that's right. Lose me to Diablo 4. Heyo. So yeah, so Diablo 4 I was able to get early access, which starts the night of June 1st. So we're recording this on the 31st, so tomorrow night from the date of recording this, I will be playing Diablo 4 with some friends and my brother, and you probably won't hear from me until at least Monday of the following week. I mean, I'm still going to play, but those days are
Nice
just like
knowing you, Mandy.
exactly. So I'm gonna take advantage of that early access and get her done. We're gonna get in there, gonna get my necromancer all leveled up and ready to go. So Diablo 4 is where I'll be in the next few days at least. So there's that. I did play some other games though before gearing up before Diablo. Five Dates was one, and I played that on Steam, and I know it is also on console. It is
That sounds
literally
very different from Diablo.
oh yes, it's like literally on the other side. And it's literally how it sounds. Is I played a guy who went on 5 dates. And what he does is he looks at profiles and says, "Oh, these are the people I want to date." Goes on one date from, with each of them from there, and then you whittle it down to the next set, and then you whittle it down to like the next few, people that he wants to date, and then finally getting to that one person that he chooses to date. It's a very short game. It's one of those interactive story type games, so it's just a click, make a decision. This decision affects what you're going to do. It's super short. It's fine for what it is. I paid like 5 or $8 for it because it was on sale. Um, that was fine for me. If I had to pay more than that, I might be a little annoyed because it's so short. And I think they came out with a sequel called 10 Dates. So you do maybe get a few more, dates in there to get your money's worth. So if you're just looking for something relaxing, something cute, whatever, hey, let's do some dates. 5 dates, it'll be for you. So keep that in mind. Another game that I played was on Steam. It's called Dice Kingdoms Demo. So I just played the demo version of this game. So it's
Okay,
just Dice
cool.
Kingdoms. This one was disappointing. I was gonna say that right off the bat. I saw the
Well, thank
game.
goodness it's just a demo.
Well, that's why I didn't buy it. I was like, well, let me just try it first and see. And I was glad that I did because I saw dice. You get resources for, your dice that you roll, and this helps you build certain things on your island. And it does look like you can play with other people in the game. I just played with the AIs, and you can create. I don't know if it's create, but you can encourage like fighting against them or potentially encouraging things like scourge and things like that on their islands, and then they have to react to that, because it could destroy some of their buildings or whatnot. It seemed a little boring. Like I didn't get it. I'm like, roll the
Oh,
dice, get the
okay,
resources, do the
okay.
things. Okay. And then it just looks like it's one of those games you're forced to interact with other people, or you should interact with other people to make it a little more interesting. If it's just building, I'll play something else like Islanders, I think it's called, or Dwarf Romantic or something along those lines. So Dice Kingdoms wasn't for me, but maybe someone else has different opinions on it that maybe I missed something. And finally, an oldie but a goodie, Clue is one that I played recently. So yes, I have played Clue, everybody. I played the back in the day, and I have to say I do prefer the old art, but it is what it is. I guess they
Ah,
gotta change with the times, and
well,
uh,
there's some nostalgia mixed in there, I'm sure.
I think so. I think that's what it is, what you're used to, right? So and in this game,
Mhm.
it was just vintage, and I like the whole vintage look. And Clue, for those who don't know, it's like a murder mystery. You're trying to find out who did it, where did they did it, and with what instrument or tool do they do it with. And in this digital version, I played it on Steam. You normally have to play with 3 people minimum. So I was just playing by myself, so it just adds 2 AIs to the mix, but you can play it online, you can play it like a couch co-op kind of thing. So you have options. Definitely seems to be some paywalls in that game, which I'm not a huge fan of, but that's for another time. But the story itself was there. I mean, sorry, the game itself was what I remember. So I played it on like super easy mode. Hee hee, I won. That's not the point. I still had fun. Definitely one that just brought back some memories. David and I will be streaming it actually the day or the night of recording this podcast. So that's Clue. Oldie but a goodie.
I love it. That's awesome. Classic
Yeah,
for a reason.
exactly.
All right, folks. Well, we've got some games to talk about. If you listened to last episode, you heard Aaron Trammell, who wrote a book called The Privilege of Play. Both Mandy and I received a media copy of the book and we've read it, and we thought we'd chat about that a little bit. And of course, we've got a game pie to serve up. But Mandy, first, I know we both have a couple of games that are crowdfunding right now that we wanted to highlight. So after you.
All right. I've been trying to stay off of crowdfunding, but it's kind of hard when you have a segment called crowdfunding. It's because I've been like getting a flurry of them. And funny enough, this is like a precursor to why I chose this one is if you're watching this on YouTube, on my shelf right there is like a little yellow box with a bird on it. It's called Village Song and it is a solo RPG. I'm really into the solo RPGs or solo adventuring game. I know you are too, Suze. We
I really do enjoy them. Yeah.
really enjoying that. So, of course, my eye gravitated on Kickstarter to Loom Portent of the Veil. And this is a print and play solo adventuring game. And this is created by Jay Merritt. And this lovely campaign ends June 29th. So you do have some time to check it out. It's selling for about £6 sterling, which equates to about $11 Canadian. I feel like Australians probably have the same kind of value there. So if I say 11 Canadian, it's usually 11 Australian dollars. I'm sorry. I feel like we need some solidarity in our monies. Moving
Sure.
on. So this is what they describe as a print and play game with a system neutral setting for fantasy TTRPGs. So Loom is the print and play fantasy adventure game, and you're going to use a map and a character sheet with procedurally generated paragraphs. This is how they describe it, where you'll explore a dark and twisted world of fantastical horror. Your favorite, Suzanne, horror.
Okay.
You're like, yeah, no.
Eh,
So
But I know
there's
you enjoy it, and that's what matters.
I do actually. So yeah, absolutely. I'm here for it. So that was Loom, but then they also have Lore, the World of Loom, which is an addition to the game of Loom, the basic one I just described, and it gets into the darker details, offering more knowledge to the player. Lore also works as an in-depth standalone system neutral setting for anybody who maybe has a favorite fantasy role-playing game, and then you can now use that world within the world of Loom, so you can kind of insert that into that. So the basic things you do in the game super quickly are moving across the veil and exploring the map, drawing a card to generate that next paragraph of your tale, so it's like your prompt, rolling on the world input tables to create your challenge rating, using your command list to interact with the scene elements, record your outcomes on a character sheet. This is common in all types of RPGs, and finally collect useful items, foraging, assisting NPCs, and searching for holy shrines. So very similar to things you'd see in a video game. Haha. So Loom, Portent of the Veil ends June 29th. Looking forward to checking that out.
That sounds very cool. I love that it's setting neutral. I think that's a
Yeah,
really cool feature.
absolutely.
All right, Mandy, I will be surprised if you don't want to back this one, but we'll see. Uh, El Burrow is on Game Found, not BackerKit, not Kickstarter. Game
Yes.
Found. This is the sister game or sequel game to La Granja,
Okay.
which is literally a top 20 game for me. I love La Granja, and hello, now we have El Burrow coming from Spielworks, which is also a favorite publisher of mine. I am stoked. Now, GameFound is a little hard to interpret the way that this works, but I think it ends June 9th. So
Okay.
from the time of this podcast, you have about a week to check it out if you haven't seen it yet. For those of you unfamiliar with La Granja, it's really well known for its clever use of multi use cards. So,
Mm.
where you put the card on your player board at the top or the sides or the bottom will change what that card does for you. It's awesome. It's just great. And so here we have El Burro. They keep that. They've got the multi use cards, they've got some dice drafting, and they say that it is slightly more complex than La Granja. That's
Oh.
a-okay by me. It plays 1 to 4, and you can back it for a copy in German or in English, and a copy is 79 euro, which, isn't inexpensive. But Spielworks does smaller print runs, and so,
Right.
you will often see a little bit higher price. And this is one thing that has double layered boards and all this other stuff, and complete solo components. There's a lot of game in this box, and I mean, I'll be honest, I as soon as I saw it, back it, because sister game to La Granja, El Burro, I had to have it. So, Mandy, I know it's a little rougher for the Canadian exchange rate, but
Yeah.
well, come down and visit and we'll play my copy.
Yes, that I can do. That I can do.
All righty, dighty. We've got some games that we've been playing, so let's head on that way.
All right. I have to admit, it's been a little bit of a light couple of weeks on games. I've just been really busy. I got a promotion at work. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So that's been taking up a lot of time and I'm just exhausted. So I just haven't been able to do it. And Fred's birthday was not too long ago. So we played more like party games and stuff. So next time I'll have more games, but these are ones that I had been saving up for the podcast. And I actually will be doing a stream of the first one solo. Yes, another solo stream for the Animals of Baker Street. So I'm probably going to do this on Twitch at some point. You all can come check it out and keep me company. So the Animals of Baker Street is designed by Clementine Beauvais and Dave Neal. Art is by Bibon. And the publisher is Yellow, and it's for 1 to 4 players, and it plays in about 45 minutes, and it retails for about $43 Canadian. So the game, as it alludes to, the Animals of Baker Street, well, you guessed it, it's a game where there's some investigations that are going to happen, well, on Baker Street. So Sherlock Holmes does make an appearance in the game with some of the cases, and you have a collection of cases that range from 1 through, I think it's like 5, I might be wrong on that, and, there are parts A and B for some of them, and there is a tutorial that kinda guides you through how the game gets played, and then you can get into that first, scenario. So, in the game, what's gonna happen is you have a little, structure with all your little animals on it, and you'll get the matching cards, and I think there are, like, 4 of them. There's a frog, a spider, a mouse, There's one more. There are 4, and they each have a different ability. Oh, and a bird. And the bird can, for example, fly into an area and be very quiet and not be heard. And there's a reason why that's important because you'll have a board which has a variety of locations. One being Sherlock's house. There's an apothecary. There's the street, and within those areas you can investigate using time tokens to find out more about the case that you're investigating. And usually there are different times of the day, like there's dusk. I think it's like dawn, dusk, and midnight or something like that. And ideally, you want to try and complete your task before midnight. And you have little clock tokens, and it tells you how many of those you have in the game. Every time you visit a location, you put one out. When you run out of those, you go into like the next part of the day. So it's kind of like your countdown. Um, and obviously, you want to try and do that, like I said, before midnight. And then some areas of the board are blocked off depending on the case that you're doing. It'll tell you to block certain areas off. You have cards that are numbered, and these cards will come up, or you acquire these cards when you are successful in questioning something or someone at a location. And at the bottom of the cards, you'll see these like magnifying glasses, and you're going to take your little animals that you have, one of the 4, and you're going to use it to question that that animal, or kind of investigate the area. And you're going to line them up with that card. So if they line up on the bottom, it'll have a number in the magnifying glass, and you're going to grab that number card, and it'll give you more information to help you solve your case. If you use an animal that maybe wasn't best suited for that situation, it won't match up. You're not going to get any more information, but you can always visit that location again with a different character. So that's the goal game. You're trying to do it before midnight, try and solve the case. Otherwise, there is the card that you have in the beginning that can kind of help you out. You're not supposed to use it, but if you're really stuck, you can use it to help you progress a little faster or sooner than, finishing it and not getting anywhere. So that's the game. It's not a long game, plays pretty quickly. I think I play them usually in about 30 minutes or so. It definitely seems like it's geared more for like a family type game, but anybody could really play it. I've only played this game solo. So what I'm talking about with you now, I know it's solo only. Uh
Wow.
yes, but this is my kind of game because you literally play like you're playing as all the characters, but they're just cards. Do you know what I mean? So if I visit a location, which one should I pick? Well, like I'm not managing a ton of stuff. So it plays like a story, like a mystery story, and you're trying to solve it. Those are the type of solo games that I thoroughly enjoy. The rules very straightforward, and I love it because it's a very straightforward game. The rules are clearly laid out in the book, on the back of the book, and you even get additional cards that you can put in front of you that walks you through the rules. I mean, if a game this simple can do that, I think these are standards that we should consider for other complex games. It seems easy because the rules are easy, so you're like, "Oh, you get too confident." And then you're like, "Oh, looks like I did not solve the puzzle." And then you need to get assistance. That was me. I got too confident because I'm like, "Ah, it's easy, it's fine." Because you start overlooking things, but sometimes just these little clues it's giving you, "Oh, okay, I need to go here."
Mhm,
And that it
mhm.
does get progressively more difficult as you play. But if you're looking for like an extreme escape room type puzzle, this is not going to be the game for you. It is meant, I think, to be more of a family level game so you can play with, your kids and the family together and work through
Mhm.
things together in a non-complex way. So I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was fun. I mean, if I can do a case and lose, I actually don't know if that's telling you much. But my point is, you can't always confidently win in these cases. And I don't mind that at all. And from the
Yeah,
solo
that seems like a
perspective,
good thing.
yeah,
Mhm.
like it was keeping me interested, engaged, and making me kind of question, well, wait a second. If this is saying that, I need to be quiet, why is the bird not the one to send in if I need to be quiet? So it makes me kind of go through this whole decision process, making process, and then blaming myself that I'm not better at the game. But
Yeah.
overall, I did enjoy the game. And I just think some people might find it a little too simple. But for my purposes, playing it solo, from that perspective, I actually quite enjoyed it. So, The Animals of Baker Street, if you want a little bit more about it, you can check it out when I do a solo play and ask me some questions there. But I liked it as a solo game.
That sounds yeah. So I've played the tutorial
Okay.
of it, and I've been kind of holding on to it to play with my kiddo, and we
Yes.
haven't gotten it to the table yet. But I think it sounds like from what you were saying, it'll be perfect for us. So I'm
Yeah, I
really
think
looking forward to exploring more.
I think your son will really, really like it.
Yeah, exactly. He likes
Yeah.
those escape rooms
He's so
games, and I feel
good.
like this deduction it'll give him the same vibe. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear you
he's
enjoy
really good at those, so I think he'll do well.
it. All right, I have had some two-player game nights
Hmm.
recently, and so I thought I'd cover a couple of those. And maybe I know that these aren't always games you get to the table frequently, but
Sure.
who knows? Maybe you'll find one interesting.
Maybe.
First up is Kawale. Kawal. It's Qawale. This is a two-player abstract game from Gigamic Games, which is, they made Squadro and one of my all-time favorite games, Quarto.
Mm,
Then, they're
yeah.
really well known for these wooden abstract games that are just lovely, well-produced abstract games. This one's designed by Romain Frogère and Didier Lenain Bragard, and it retails for around 38 US dollars. So, as mentioned, it's two-player abstract. You're going to get a board that's a 4x4 grid, and it looks like it has these pebbles, like it's built into it, like these
Oh.
wide, flat rocks built
Oh,
into it. And
I
those are just
have
the.
played this game.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just got really excited when you started talking about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay,
I look
sorry.
forward to hearing
Keep
your
going.
thoughts on it. And you get a bag full of rocks, but they're wood. So the painted wood. And there's tan neutral ones, and then there's a red player and a yellow player. And so you're going to set up the neutral things, and then you get your little pile of stones, wood stones in your color. And the way that this works is on your turn, you're going to place one of your stones on top of a stack that's on the board. One stone can count as a stack, but you can't put it on an empty spot.
Mhm.
Then you pick up that stack and you move the stack orthogonally, dropping off a stone from the bottom of the stack as you go. So if I move three forward and I pick up a stack of, three stones, I'm going to go bloop, bloop, bloop and drop them one off as I go. The goal of the game is to get four of your color in a row, diagonally, horizontally, or vertically.
Right.
Yeah. Um, where your color is on the top, right? So it doesn't matter if there's opponent's colors underneath yours. It's what you can see from that top down view. You want your color on top, four in a row, boom, you win. So I tend to like these
Yeah.
two-player abstract games a lot, and I think Koala is no different. Now, I found it challenging, more challenging than I
Mm.
found some other ones. Getting into the rhythm at first was a little. I'm gonna say I struggled with it just
Okay.
because I was trying to figure out how the system worked. And what I found is that in the early game, you're just kind of seeding stuff. I don't know how
Mm.
strategic I really felt. And then in the mid game, everything just starts to build up and you start to like, oh, well, if I do this or I do that, and you start to think through things a lot more. And then right at the end, everything just seems to go whoop and rush together. And you're like, bam, bam, bam. And it gets a little, in as two-player abstract games often can be, it gets a little aggressive, right? As you're stomping around and stacking up stones and cover each other's stones up and things like that. I really enjoyed it. I think it's really simple to teach. It's quick to play. It's satisfying when you win. I did play a couple games where they ended up in essentially draws, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Not one of my favorite, not a top. Like Quarto's still number one for me,
Sure.
but I really enjoyed Qual. It's a beautiful production, and I do like that dropping from the bottom kind of mechanism. I thought that was very, very clever. So I enjoyed it. So that is Kowal from Gigamic Games.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. So I think I played it with a game designer, so of course that always makes me nervous because I feel like they're mathing it out as we're
Ooh, yeah.
playing, and I don't remember how it ended, but it might have been a draw potentially, but I do feel like this game would end in a lot of that, like where
Yeah,
neither side
I think I
wins.
played it six times, and I think two of my games ended up in draws. So
Yeah, so I could definitely see that. So I enjoyed it. I had fun with it, but I do feel the ending of it might be there where you're like, "Oh, okay." Hmm,
well, as a friend I played with just the other day pointed out, Erwin, he was like, "Well, really, what you got to do is get a bunch of your color on the bottom so that you're controlling the
right.
drops." And absolutely correct. I just maybe I'm just not very good at that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you got a chance to play it though. All right. Well, the last game I'm going to talk about is one that I've been meaning to talk about it for quite some
And
time.
it's a two-player.
I know, and that's because I had gotten it played so many times when I was at an event. I was like, "Yes, we're going to play this,"
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't know what happened, but it just kind of went. I guess it got stuck in my pile. I keep a little pile of games where I need to talk about, and I forgot. So I apologize if this is a little rusty with the rules here. I'm going to try my best not to be. But Winter is a game I'm going to talk about, and this is designed by Maria Blasco. Maria Blasco Hernandez and Enrique Blasco. And the art is by Meeple Foundry and Carlos Ureta, and it's published by Devere. So we've had a few Devere games on here,
Mhm.
and it's a two-player game, as Suzanne noted, and it plays in about 10 minutes. Retails for about $12 Canadian, so it's not overly expensive. So in winter, you're competing to be the player with the most chips of their color on the lake at the end of the game. And literally in this game, it's cards and these like little chips that you have in your colors. There are two phases to the game. I'm just really bad at one of them, but I think it was the first phase. And in the phase, this is where you're trying to create like a contiguous kind of area. So I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Suzanne, because I know you've played this as well. You have to have like an area of four kind of snowflakes together. So what ends up happening is the cards have the different colored snowflakes, and I think they're like a light blue and a dark blue, and you want to try and get them connected in the same kind of quadrant, so a quadrant of the same colors in your color, ideally, and then you get to put one of your little markers in that quadrant, which is really nice. You're like, oh, that's great, it's easy. Yeah, this is just the first phase. Okay, so you play that, play out your cards till that happens. You're done. Then in the second phase, this is because you've now secured your zones. This is where you're now undoing the creations. This is almost like your ice is
Right,
melting or
freezing and then
unfreezing?
melting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And so you're trying to retrieve cards and chips of your color because now at the end of the game, the player with the most chips on the table is declared the winner. Problem is when you start breaking these things apart, like, you could be potentially breaking up your own or others on this lake that you've created. So you have to be really strategic in determining which cards, you're going to break apart from their quadrant because it could get you in trouble too. So this is one of those games where it's simple, but like I was saying, like, oh yeah, I'll just do this. No, because now you've created a bit of a chain reaction, right? And that might
Mhm,
affect
mhm.
you in the long run because remember, you want more of your chips on the board. I do find this is a game where I struggled a bit because I'm the type of player who has more of a laid back approach to these types of games. I'm not overly aggressive. I'm kind of just like,
Mhm.
I'll just let them kind of sort it out or work it out on their own and they'll trip up. I do find in this game you do have to get a little bit more, and I say aggressive, but you just really have to be a bit more strategic when you're placing. I'm just one of those people like, yeah, it'll just play out. You do need to push that a little bit. Otherwise, I find you will lose. It happened to me the first time I played, and I was like, well, wait now. Next time I was like, no, I'm just gonna be a little more, strategic and aggressive in how I'm playing this. And it did work out to my benefit. So I mean, you can play it however you want. I just feel like if you actually want to have some skin in the game, then that's probably the best way to do it. Gosh, that's a horrible saying, and I am so sorry that I said that. I just cringed as it came out of my head. Sorry,
It's a saying. It's
I
a
used to
saying.
play football. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things.
It's a turn of
So
phrase.
overall, I enjoyed it. Again, it's two player, so it's just one of those games where it is meant to be a two-player game. You can see that when you play it.
Oh,
Harder
yeah.
for me to get to the table because two-player games just I don't have groups of two very often. But Winter for me was a fun one, and the price is right. I think you'll get your money's worth out of the game Winter.
Great. I have played it a couple of times, and it's going to click. I think it's the game where it's gonna click with some folks and not click with others, and
I
I
do agree.
know that, it as many two-player games are, they just like I was talking about with Koal previously, you can get a little aggro, right? And just
Sure.
like you're talking about, because your placement and the way, the cards that you choose to take away during the melt,
Yeah.
yeah, that's some antagonism. So definitely play with somebody in which your relationship status is firm
It's
and
good.
unshakable. Just saying.
Fair point. Fair point.
All right, to wrap up games played, another two-player game, and this one is brand spanking new. I received a preview copy and really thankful for that
Mine's
from
sitting right there.
CMYK.
Right
Mandy
there.
has it on her shelf behind her. It's a tube, you will notice.
Hmm.
Ooh, interesting. I am boring as an individual in general, and I know that and accept that about myself. I drive a minivan, for God's sake,
Oh
and
dear.
it's gray.
I'm
I
joking.
mean, come on. But I like my board game boxes simple. I like
What?
them cardboard, and I like them, with corners and things like that. So tubes, tins, not my favorite. Oh well. But
All
here we
right.
have Lacuna. Lacuna is a game designed by Mark Garrett, who is a designer I'm very, very fond of. The illustrations are by Nick Leafheber, and as mentioned, published by CMYK Games. This is a two-player abstract game that's very straightforward, or is it?
Oh.
So what you're going to do is when you open up this tube, you're going to pull out all the components and you're going to get a cloth board. When you lay it out, it's just got a big circle on it. I mean, it's
Oh.
got some illustrations, very pretty, but ultimately the main feature is this big circle. Then you're going to get a bag of wooden flowers
Hmm.
and a bag of heavy metal pawns. So there's gold pawns and silver pawns. One
Oh,
player's gold,
nice.
one player's silver. There are 7 different colors of flour. They are all shaped differently and all colored differently. So,
Hmm.
double coating for color vision deficiency, that kind of
Nice.
thing, and just looks cool. And there are 7 of each flower. So, 49 total flowers. Now, what you're going to do, the game plays in 2 phases. The first phase, well, first of all, you are instructed to put all the flowers into the tube. It has an inner lid with a little hole in it, and then they're like, shake the flowers out onto the board randomly from with the inner lid on.
Okay.
Okay, and then the flowers all go out. They tell you to spread them out so they're kind of evenly distributed, but
Right.
don't change the randomization of the play. And then you move into the first phase of play. The first phase of play is you take turns putting your pawns out onto the board. You will put them between 2 identical flowers of your choice and, anywhere between them. There can't be anything else interrupting the straight line between the 2 flowers. So if there's 2 dark blue flowers, I can put my pawn between them, and then you take those 2 flowers. Now, between those 2 flowers, you may put your pawn anywhere between them. You could put them right next to one of the flowers or dead center. Your choice along that imaginary invisible line where you put the pawn. And then you take those 2 flowers. Go back and forth, putting out pawn, taking 2 flowers, etc., etc. As you are taking flowers, sometimes that will open up paths between 2 different flowers, and
Hmm.
it kind of changes the options that you might have, which is really interesting. Once you're 6, I think each player is about 6 or 7 pawns, maybe it's 7, uh, pawns out, then you move into the second phase, and that is simply distributing the flowers based on whose pawn is closest to it. So you look at the flowers that are left on the board, and silver is closest enough to these 2. Silver gets those. Gold is closest next to this one. You gold gets that one, et cetera, until all the flowers are assigned to players. The player wins when you have the most of a color and the most colors overall. So basically, because there's 7 of each, if you have 4 in a color, you've won that color. And if you win 4 colors, you've won the game.
Oh.
That's simple. So once you get majority and majority, you've won. That's the whole game. It plays in, I mean, 15 minutes.
Oh,
It's
it's quick.
super duper quick. I mean, you can definitely think about it. It comes with a little plastic ruler for you to measure. Oh, are you closer? Am I closer? That kind of thing. Uh, the production is beautiful. The pawns are like they're metal and they stand, and it kind of serves to actually hold the fabric mat down, which is kind of nice, but
Oh.
they feel sturdy. The wooden flowers are lovely. They're beautiful. Like I said, they're shaped differently and they just have a really nice aesthetic. They actually packaged them in a paper bag. I feel like this game is trying to do a nod to
Oh.
some environmental
Nice.
thoughtfulness and mindfulness, which is
Yeah.
nice as well. And so you've got all that. Uh, Great production, beautiful abstract game. I found the tipping them out of the tube a little fiddly, a little annoying. I'm just gonna put my hands, shake them, and drop them. Whatever. That is such a quibble. It's not even. What I will say is it's great. It is great for the heaviness of the rule set, the simplicity of the play, the quickness of the play. The way that the board changes as you're putting out pawns and removing things, and that choice of being able to put your pawn anywhere in that invisible line between 2 flowers. So you're like, oh, if I put it here, I'm closer to those 2. But Mandy's already winning pink, so maybe I should move it closer to this flower over here because then I can try to fight for orange over there. Oh, but Mandy could put her pawn there and take that orange flower so it won't even matter in the second phase. There's a lot of planning and thinking and board assessing for each one of your turns. Not
Okay.
in an analysis paralysis way, but in
Okay.
a, ooh, I feel like I have options, and ooh, I feel like my decisions, as simple as they are, do really matter. And I think that that is a great feeling in such a quick and beautiful game. So Lacuna is a pretty big hit for me. Now I am a fan of Mark Garrett's Steamrollers, one of my favorite roll and write games. He's the designer of. He also did Mini Rails, which is another great
Yep.
game as well. And I don't know if I've seen anything like Lacuna from him before, but
Oh, interesting.
uh, just add it to my list of Mark Garrett's games that I'm a big fan of.
I haven't played it yet. It's 2 player, so you know how that is for me, but I'm really excited to try it. So I'm gonna have to be like, "We're doing 2 player, you others can play something else." So,
Yeah, I highly recommend it, Mandy.
nice.
It's delightful.
Amazing.
Alrighty. Hey, before we serve up pie, I know that we wanted to talk about from last episode, our thoughts on the privilege of play. I don't know that
Mhm.
we're really reviewing it or not, but
No.
it's 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 an interesting book. So as you heard Aaron, the author, talk about last time, it really is a book tackling uh, hobby games, board games, geek culture, and race,
Mhm.
specifically in that. And Aaron is a professor, and this is a book, and I think we mentioned this in the podcast last time, that is extremely academic. So this
Yes.
is not a casual, scattered with quirky, cute anecdotes kind of book. This is a pretty hefty piece of academic feeling
Right.
writing. And that's not a criticism. It is
No.
setting expectations of, if you pick up this book, what to expect, right?
Right.
And Mandy goes through the history uh, mail-in games
Uh-huh.
and war games, all the way through, like, train. It talks about model trains and their
Yeah.
impact and their influence, all the way through the digital era when Board Game Geek was established, and now we have content creators and the internet and all that other stuff, basically through modern times. And
Mhm.
there's a ton of references in it. If this is a topic that interests you more, everything is fully annotated and fully referenced, so there's tons more reading.
Right.
It's almost a resource, right, for you to explore more if it's a topic. So, Mandy, anything that you wanted to highlight or point out in The Privilege of Play?
Yeah, so I did this is the teacher in me. I did highlight and make little stickies to mark notes in case I wanted to bring them up, but just as an overall, I didn't actually have a lot of background into companies like Avalon Hill. And so definitely it's like, oh, I mean, knowing the times that a lot of these games were made, I expected to see certain types of imagery, racist imagery that was kind of inherent in some of these companies and some of the games they were producing, and that was acceptable. So that threw me a little bit because I
Yeah,
just
it's almost
didn't.
like there needed to be a content warning when you're flipping through it, because
Yeah,
content warning here, well, I mean, we're not going to show it on
sure,
the podcast and the video cast, but uh, definitely racist caricatures are illustrated that were part of the culture then. They're not,
right,
they're not for shock value, they're for example value. And then a lot of Nazi imagery that was
yes.
used in games in the past as well are in this book.
Yeah, so definitely when, you hear the phrase often, keep politics out of gaming. And it's like, well, if you actually historically look back at a lot of these war games, right, which he talks about in the book, they definitely reference real wars, but it's not always from the people who were affected. It's by the people who maybe were doing, initiating these wars and from a different, like a higher kind of power perspective. Yeah, so sometimes, just some of the types of games like war games and train games, you hear a lot of people like keep this, politics out of gaming, but back in the day, that's what it was about, right? And it just so happened that the politics aligned with what, was I don't want to say necessarily prominent, but was accepted in society, and it wasn't always a good thing. And then something else to note was that a point that he made in the book, and I was like, it's true. A lot of people identify as like, I'm a gamer, you know what I mean? And they really hold on to that title and what inherently some of the things that are involved in that title are negative, just because of history. And I just thought that was really interesting. And there was a line in here, if I'm going to quote from the book, and they're speaking specifically about a person that he was speaking to. The implication for Nooney is that any critique of video games or the game industry must recognize that games are embedded within cultural systems much greater than the representational stories told by the games themselves. And
Mhm,
that's huge relating to what I was saying earlier. I
mhm.
don't want to take too much time on that, but Suzanne, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about as well.
I think overall, reading the book was a good experience. Uh, it got slightly stressful as I
Sure.
was reading through some of it, for sure. For example, well, and then some of it was just interesting. So
Yep.
I'm fully not deeply knowledgeable, but I'm very aware of like Avalon Hill history. One of the local conventions that I help organize has a heavy war gamer, have a heavy war game of presence, so I'm a little more familiar with that. But like the whole model train history was something I was completely unfamiliar with. So
Right.
that was very enlightening and interesting for me to learn about that link and how that transferred into Avalon Hill and essentially board games, war games, and
Yeah.
how that went on. I think that the author's point, Aaron's point about how it's not that these battles were represented, um it's that the Nazism was you are glorifying,
Yeah,
you
that's
are
the word.
reveling in a Nazi win, and how um that's kind of gross in for many people. And to what you were saying, Mandy, how just that's just it is. Like they're for people who have no skin in the game,
There it
who
is.
have no vestment, right? It
Right.
doesn't matter to them. It's history. They aren't affected by it. It doesn't matter. They're not threatened by it. How insidious that can be in a way to
Right.
just take on the vestments of that kind of role and revel in it and celebrate it without really thinking about it or understanding how that impacts people in the room, people in your city, or your own mindsets. And I
Right.
think that that was a really important point. And I think for sure, especially for you and I, as the book went into more modern times and tackling some of the issues related to how the internet impacts things, that's where I found stress, right?
Right.
Because we've lived through some of those incidents and we've lived through some of those issues. We experience them, unfortunately, on a regular basis today still. And so I found that was where I started having to put the book down a couple of
Right.
times and just, breathe and things like that. Not that it was traumatic, but it just,
No.
it makes you remember things that aren't necessarily
Right.
pleasant memories. There are, moments in the book that I know you personally lived through, Mandy, that
Yes.
even though you're not referenced, neither of us are
Sure.
involved in this book in any way. But as I was reading, I thought of you, and was like, "Ooh, that, yeah, Mandy knows that
Yep.
situation very well." So, from that perspective, it definitely was hard hitting. I will say that the book is largely focused on race, as it promises on the cover,
Yes.
which is fine. I I love that there are more people taking a scholarly and academic approach to studying the world of tabletop games. I think it's important. Tanya Pobeda, who
Yep.
also does her heavy research as well, is very valuable. I would love to see a follow up, whether it's by this author and whether he feels like it's appropriate for him to write. But I would love to see a kind of follow up that spreads into more intersectional views,
Yes.
because I think some of sexism really isn't
Mhm.
talked about, and some of the gender dynamics in the industry and in the board games that we play aren't covered, which is fair. It's not what the game's about, but it's almost like I
Right.
want more. Right now that I've had this and I can see that we can produce books like this, now I
Right.
want more. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly it, and I know you too, probably. I read a few areas too where I was like, "Oh, Suzanne knows this. Oh, absolutely." So, I
sure,
definitely feel where you're coming from, and as you were saying before, yeah, it does focus more on race. I think they touch a little bit, tiny, tiny
a
bit
little bit. Yeah,
on,
yeah.
misogyny and whatnot, but yes, a follow-up would be great, and maybe getting some more, voices in the community to kind of share, some other perspectives as well. I think that would be amazing.
I agree. I agree. So, thank you so much to Aaron Trammell for ensuring that we got to review or access to
Yeah.
this book. The privilege of play. It was a very compelling read, and I really appreciate that this work is being done. So, if that's something, if
Mhm.
the culture of board games is something that interests you, and you are interested in, not just anecdotes, but in kind of more supported commentary, it's definitely worth a check.
Yeah. I'll put a link to, where you can find the book in the description, in the video description below.
And we'll have it in the show notes for sure.
Perfect.
Alrighty, whew, a little bit heavier topic, but
Yeah,
important, and something that we don't cover a lot here. But I'm very glad we had the opportunity to bring it up. So,
absolutely.
but we should definitely serve up some dessert to kind of lighten us up before we wrap the show. Don't you think, Mandy?
Yes, something like pie. Yeah.
Mm. All right, Mandy, you picked this pie, and I
Oh,
was fully on board.
yeah, because it was short. Just like
Well,
the.
until I tried to pick games, and then it got
Really?
complicated.
I
But
thought it
please,
was a good one.
it is good. I just had so many choices.
Okay. Well, you're all like, well, what's the game pie already? So, literally, favorite short games 30 minutes and under. I mean, sometimes you're just in a mood for like a little nom, 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 quick little snack of pie and then move on. And we have those days, not always the lengthy pie a la mode and the fire with your, robe. And okay, that's just me. I digress. But we're just going
Oh
to do
boy,
little quickies today. So I'm going to start first. Is that okay?
please.
Okay. Well, I didn't actually review this one on the podcast. I think Suzanne did already, but Bargain Basement Bathysphere. So it's a
I was
roll.
surprised to see this on your list. I gotta admit.
Well, it's a solo. That's first things first. Let's start there. But the games are really quick, and it's literally that. Like it's rolling, right? So you have a sheet and you're trying to make it through the, I don't know, depending on the map that you're doing, usually it's some kind of water area that you're trying to make your way through and you're collecting points, trying not to get stuck in certain spots because they can give you negative points, and you're trying to get back out with a certain set of points before you can move on to the next page sheet scenario. It is solo. It says it plays about 10 to 15 minutes. Me, it's like 20 minutes because, of course, it takes so long to play solo games.
Well, the
But
different scenarios can
yeah, can
vary.
change the length, but it's super easy, straightforward, and, I mean, I'm having fun with it. So, Bargain Basement Bathysphere. Holy, say that 3 times or 10 times fast.
Bargain base. No, can't
Yeah,
do it.
no.
Uh, so games under 30 minutes, I just felt like as I was starting to think of that, I was like, oh God, I have dozens of these games. So I had to kind of provide personal extra guardrails to winnow
Ah,
it down
got
for
it.
this pie. So I said no solo and no two player and no party games. So
Hmm.
this is my short games that play more than two that aren't party games.
But see, that works for you because I don't play two-player games and I don't play a lot of solo, so it actually works out really well.
Yeah, no, I'm actually, and then with those parameters, I'm like, oh, I
Okay,
have a good list.
excellent.
So first up is a newer game that we reviewed recently, Veggie Stock. This is a quick card game in which you've got these cards that mark the price of five different vegetables. You get a hand of card, you get cards laid out, and you draft them, building up a little set. And every time you take whatever cards left over, it moves the price of the veggies that is on that card that's left behind. It's incredibly clever and fun, and it literally plays in 20 minutes, but it's a very rewarding game, and it plays up to 5. I love it. My friends Josh and Melissa gave me my copy, and I'm so grateful to them because it is a massive hit. That is Veggie Stock.
Oh, is that the one with the eggplants?
It has
Yeah,
eggplants.
okay, that's the exciting one. Okay. Well, my next one, I actually have the new version, I just haven't had a chance to play it yet, is Air, Land, and Sea. And I have to tell you, did not think this was gonna be my type of game at all because I saw the word like battle cards against another player. I was like, oh, this is not gonna be my thing. Gotta tell you, I was digging it, so I really like it, and it is one of those ones where you're trying to get the other person to withdraw, but you have cards that have different abilities and numbers on them, and depending on what's played, can obviously get them out of the game. And it's plays pretty quickly. I think it plays in about, it says 15 to 30 minutes. I always go on the higher end of the spectrum. I'd say probably closer to the 30 minutes. But Airland and Sea, if you haven't tried it, don't be scared of the battle part of it. It actually is quite fun. So Airland and Sea.
Yeah, I love that game. Really
Hmm.
solid choice. Next up for me, I had to get at least one roll and write in the pie, of course, when in fact a lot of roll and writes can fit this category. But one, this one's nominated for Spiel,
Ooh
so
la
hello.
la.
And two,
Mm.
I really love it. So this is Next Station London. It is a card driven roll and write in which you are connecting different stations, and there's four different colors and there's four different matching pencils. And so each player takes a pencil, starts off the round, does that, and then when the round ends, you pass the pencil, you get a new color pencil, and then you play another round. You play through four rounds, and then you've got this really cool metro line thing with some very clever scoring in terms of getting points for how many areas you hit times how many bits in one area you
Right.
hit. So it pushes some really clever choices along the way on top of everything else. Super simple, very predictable gameplay time. Definitely under 30 minutes whether you're playing with, three, or if you have two boxes and you're playing with seven people, that kind of thing. Next Station London, really great quick game.
Very, very good choice.
Thank you.
Well, my next one, I think Suzanne also enjoys this one, and it is a two-player. Wow, I'm on a roll today. Two-player trick-taking game, and it's called Claim. And I have all of it plus Claim 2. I have all the things, and it's one of those trick-taking games where your cards have different abilities, and it happens in two phases. Like phase one, you're getting cards that you're going to use to kind of recruit your followers, and then in phase two, those cards or followers you've recruited, you're then going to use those to try and win
Yeah,
against your competitor. So I don't get this to the table as often as I'd like just because it's two-player, but when I do, I have a blast with it and it plays relatively quickly. So claim.
great choice. Love that game.
Yeah.
Next up for me, Escape. Exkape. Escape.
I was about to correct
Or
you.
Escape or Rapido,
Ah,
which is yeah, another name it's published under. I believe this is a Knizia game. God, I hope I have that right. It's a little racing game. Push your luck racing game. You're rolling a bunch of dice. If you get doubles and you're trying to be, it is super light, super simple. But that energy that kicks in with this game as you're playing it is just so great, and that push your luck that you get with something like a Can't Stop is totally in Escape, but it's a racing game. I love it. I ended up not being able to get a copy of Escape because I played it at a convention a number of years ago, but it was out of
oh,
print. And then I found out Rapido is available in some countries, so I actually ordered Rapido from overseas just so I could have a copy of it. It's a game I'd love to see reprinted because it is a great racing push your luck game.
nice.
Quick, 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 great filler game or what have you. Definitely check that one out.
Okay, I've not heard of this one, so now I'll have to go look into it. Well, my final slice of pie is a game that I know my friend Stephanie, who's listening, loves this game. I've only ever played it solo, and it's called Limes. You've played this one, I think, Suze.
Is it limes or is it limes?
I don't know. I actually don't know. Let's see.
I also do not know, but I call it limes. But it could be
It didn't
limes.
have an accent on the E, so that's why I said limes, but hey,
Okay.
listen, I could be wrong. So if it is, someone let me know. But it's one of those I guess it's like a card. They look like tiles, but they're cards and you're laying them
Yep.
down beside other cards and you're trying to keep terrains together and trying to make sure that your pieces are in those areas because you're going to collect points for having like those larger areas like fields and water and things like that. So that's the basic premise of the game. There are a few games that are similar, but I like this one because it's snappy and it plays 1 to 2 players. So limes or limes, depending. We'll need to find out.
Well, yeah, limes is a game that I have three. I bought three copies because it's
What?
like number nine or these other games where it doesn't matter. You can play as many players as you have components for, and
Oh,
so yeah,
got it.
so it's a really great choice. I love this game, Mandy. I'm jealous you had it on your list because I didn't put it on mine.
Yay!
All right, to wrap up our favorite short games, Game Pie, 8 Minute Empire,
Ooh, good one.
folks. It's not an 8 minute game. With love and respect to Red Raven Games, the publisher of 8 Minute Empire. No. But
What?
it is under 30 minutes. That is legit. And for this area control game, under 30 minutes, that's a solid playtime and experience. You get cards that come out, they have resources on them, they have actions on them, and they have scoring elements on them. So you're getting these cards from the market, you're putting out different wooden cubes into the map board, trying to control different areas with castles and soldiers, and you're moving things around and figuring out all that scoring thing. It is very quick to play, but definitely has, area control, so it's got some aggression in it, player
Mhm.
interaction in it, and the way that the card market moves and the way that the cards are designed is very, very clever. There is a great app version out as well if you're interested in checking that out. But 8 Minute Empire is not 8 minutes, but definitely under 30, and a great, great short game.
Nice. That's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. Another game pie, another episode of Salt and Sass. Hmm.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining us for episode 20. And hey, thanks everybody who have been chiming in on the Board Game Geek Guild. I'm a little behind in responding, but I've actually been reading your comments about favorite games from the 90s or, favorite underrated games, things like that. Love reading your replies and your thoughts on that. So thank you so much for everybody who is chipping in there. So thank you so much, everybody who's been chiming in on the Board Game Geek Guild. Of course, you are also welcome to email us. You can reach us at saltandsassgames@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for a game pie, if you have any questions about the privilege of play. It's a little bit of a heavier book. And if you'd
Mhm.
like any additional thoughts or you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out. Happy to chat with you about that kind of stuff. You can join us on that Board Game Geek Guild. We are guild number 4131. Mandi, how about the socials? Where else can people find us?
Oh boy, yes, we are on the socials. So we are on, well, right here on YouTube, where some of you are watching, and we are also on the Twitch under Salt and Sass Games. We are also on the Twitter, but it's spelled a little differently there. Salt N Sass Games. So that's Salt N Sass Games. Well, socials, I mean, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky with the handle at 613Mandi. And that's Mandi with an I. How about you, Suzanne? Where can we find you?
You can find me in all the socials at 425 Suzanne. Oh, that's me. So there you go. Yeah, that's where you can find us. Chat us up, ask us questions. We, of course, it is It is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family. And we love hearing from you and chatting with you on BGG or on the socials. So feel free to just say hi, even. We will see you next episode, episode 21. Mandi, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I just assume you're going to be in a Diablo 4 haze, just talking about your Necromancer build the whole time. So I'm kind of
Yep,
gearing up for that.
probably. Sorry, everybody. Just warning you in advance.
Fair enough. I hope you have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
And hey, if you're out there playing Diablo 4, chat Mandi up about it because she is ready to rock and roll. We'll see you next episode. Until then, stay hydrated and play some games, folks. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode was sponsored by Druid City Games, where player experience comes first. Check out all of their great games at druidcitygames.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com/Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. We are also a part of the Goonhammer Media Network. Check out more of their content on media.goonhammer.com. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandi, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.